Welcome back to The Key with Kim Mills. Today, we're going to do something I'm going to call Key Moments, which is a short space from me to share from the heart in real time with you. So, here's the topic that I want to bring up today. I want to talk about disappointment and failure, which I know that's a big topic, but I've just had something happen in my family that I think is worth sharing. I've had a kid who finished up a sports season and, without going into all the detail, because you probably don't care, he just didn't finish where he wanted to finish. I think we've all had moments like that. You were hoping for a different outcome or your goal was something else and maybe you didn't reach it. But at the end, it's like literally over and you're left with this feeling. And his feeling was really negative, just like super disappointed. And maybe at the verge of saying like, I don't even want to do this anymore. So I just wanted to talk about that because I feel like whether you're dealing this with a kid or maybe at a point with something that you're very passionate about, it could be a hobby, it could be your career, it could be anything. I feel like you can still identify it and handle it the same way. I look back on major disappointments I had as a kid, and even I have them all the time now through my career. And I think we still think about them kind of in the same process. So here was my advice to him. Take it or leave it, you guys. But I think sometimes you just need somebody to listen and then maybe give you a little bit of perspective. Then it's up to you if you want to take it or leave it. So I think there are a couple different things when you're in that position. What are you going to do? You can choose to like sit in that disappointment and be upset and maybe even you're mad. You can sit in that for a really long time. So that's one option. You can take like a middle road where maybe you sit in that space for a little bit and then, be insightful and kind of look at what you want to do and maybe readjust. Like, okay, here's really what I want to have happen. Maybe I need to do things a little bit differently to get there. So that's like the second lane. I think like the third lane would be like you just throw it all away. Like I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to look inward at all. I just want to like not touch that ever again in my life. So clearly I think the outside choices are not probably the most healthy, although sometimes maybe that is the answer and you're the only one that's going to know what that answer is. What I try to do and what I'm trying to teach my kids to do as well is like in the middle, you can find a lot of good if you're willing to look for it. And just because something didn't happen doesn't mean it's never going to happen. So let me give you a couple examples, at least from my life, because I feel like I remember this as a college athlete. I remember this in real estate. We are constantly reminded in real estate. We're rejected all the time in real estate. So you have to kind of go through this process a lot. But I vividly remember having a point in my athletic career where I was holding on to something so tight. It was specifically, I was like dead set on making this time standard so I could go to Olympic trials in this one event. Okay. And I was like less than 10th of a second off of this. So it was a very small amount. I was holding on to it and holding on to it so tight. I kept missing it by like 6/100ths of a second, 4/100ths of a second. And I was like, if I just get one more chance to do this, it's going to happen. So I was asking my college coach at the time to let me lead off a relay because I could if you lead off the relay, my time would count. And he said no. And I was like devastated because I didn't understand the difference. I didn't understand where he was coming from. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where he was coming from. I had to realize I was so upset about something that I didn't have. Like I was so mad about something that was in the future that hadn't happened, but I was acting as if like it was taken away from me. It took a lot for me to process through that to get to the point where it's okay. Like that didn't happen. It doesn't negate everything else that I achieved. It also doesn't mean that everything I did was awful, right? But I did have to kind of come to terms with the fact that I was holding on to something that I wanted really, really bad. Like I wanted it so bad, but it was in the future and we don't control any of that. So I have to remind myself of that often. Sometimes we get a little bit ahead of ourselves and we start forward thinking to the point where we're not being present in the moment. We're not probably doing everything we could in the present moment. That's one example. I can also tell you in real estate, actually, I got really good advice starting in my career. I had somebody tell me, let's say, I go to a listing appointment and I have a seller who says, we really loved everything that you offered, but we're choosing to go with somebody else. That happens in this business. It happens a lot. I was so upset. I was like, I thought I was going to get this. So I come into the office and I'm verbally processing all of this. And the team lead at the time, Marilyn Vutek, she told me, she said, okay, Kim, you're allowed to be upset about this for 24 hours and then you have to move on. And I was like, okay, that's actually amazing advice, because it's not saying you're not allowed to be upset. It's not saying it didn't mean a lot to you, but it is saying that at some point you have to close that page and move forward. So I use that all the time, where now it doesn't really take me 24 hours to process it. Maybe it takes an hour or two, but I have come to, I think, more of a abundant mindset where if it didn't happen that way, maybe it just wasn't supposed to happen that way. And maybe that means something else is going to happen, and I'm okay with that. So I think that's part of just the journey of learning. But let's go back to a teenager processing this and figuring out, like, what are you going to do? I think that middle space of being disappointed, having a serious goal, not meeting it, and then you say, okay, what am I going to do? I think that is where, honestly, that's where all this growth happens for all of us, no matter where you are in your timeline in your life. That is where you have the opportunity to say, where am I doing things right? Where am I just being honest with myself? Where am I like dropping the ball? Where am I maybe not putting the emphasis? I think when it comes to sports, often we practice the things that we're good at. Maybe I need to focus on some things that I'm not good at. That's not as fun, but that's obviously where a lot of the growth can come from. I think that if you can fall into that middle space in a way where it can be scary, it can be uncomfortable, but you really can move yourself forward into alignment with your goal, I think that's the place to be. So my advice, maybe this is hitting you, maybe you're dealing with something right now, or maybe one of your kids is, I think talk through it. Be the person that if they want to chat with you, or if you need to chat with somebody, be courageous enough to verbalize it and recognize that just because something didn't happen the way you thought it would, didn't mean that it's not going to happen at all. It just maybe hasn't happened yet. It also might happen, but it might look a little bit different than what you really think the end result is going to look like. We aren't in control of what that end result is, right? We're in control of how we operate every single day and how we move the needle forward every single day. So my advice is focus on that. Focus on those little things and try to find joy in those little things. And eventually you're going to get to a really great endpoint. You might not even know what that endpoint is. Thank you so much for tuning in. As you know, new episodes drop every Tuesday. If this message resonated with you or made you think of somebody, please send it to them, subscribe, share it with a friend, pass the message along. It means so much. I'm really excited to continue going on this journey with you. And until next time, remember, the key is really in the details, and the journey is just as important as the destination.